Good morning, good evening, or good night to lovely people watching. In today's video, we will be walking through emotions. I'm going to read a few pages from The Mountain Is You in order for us to get a better understanding. Anger. Anger is a beautiful, transformative emotion. It is mischaracterized by its shadow side, aggression, and therefore we try to resist it. It is healthy to be angry, and anger can also show us important aspects of who we are and what we are about. For example, anger shows us where our boundaries are. Anger also helps us identify what we find to be unjust. Ultimately, anger is trying to mobilize us to in- anticipate action. Anger is transformative and it's often the peak state we reach before we truly change our lives. This is because anger is not intended to be projected onto someone else. Rather, it's an influx of emotions that help us change what we need to change within our lives. When we do not see it as such, we tend to bury it, not ever resolving the real issue at hand. This is when anger starts to cross over into aggression. When we take that energy out on those around us, as opposed to using it as an impetus to change ourselves, instead of being afraid of anger, we can instead use it to help us to see our limits and priorities more clearly. We can also use it to help us make big important changes both for ourselves and the world around us. An example of anger I have is frustration. For example, when it's a form of anger that when I fail enough amount of times, I get frustrated. For example, take the gym. If there's a certain goal I've been trying to reach in almost every single week, every single month, I've been trying to aspire for it, and I do not reach that goal, I get angry and frustrated with myself because I'm failing because either I'm pushing myself too much, I'm not eating as I'm supposed to, I'm most likely using a technique wrong, or there's something else. So I use the anger and frustration by digging deeper. I usually take a pen and paper and I draw lines. Okay, I've been chasing this goal for 6 months, as an example. Really frustrating to this point. I'm getting angry, but I do not want to use this aggression towards anyone else. I only want to use it towards my goals. So I can hone this anger when I'm at the gym and bring it into the light. For example, this is a short term thing I usually do, very rarely. Every single time I need an extra boost of sort of motivation or anger, I bring up a memory. Someone that wronged me, something that is frustrating for myself, and I actually trigger my own anger in my own mind by stepping into it. And right as I'm about to act upon it, and I feel the blood flowing a little more. What do? At the exact moment I feel frustration, anger, aggression, or anything kick in, I hone it and I use it to lift heavier. But at the same time, I'm in control of my emotions. Then I push harder. That is technique that I usually use, but it took me a long time to kind of hone that skill. Before it used to be destructive for me by when I got angry and I failed a set, I lingered with the anger and failure feeling the rest of the day, so I ruined it for me because I let anger take control of me. Sadness. Sadness is the normal and correct response to the loss of something you very much love. This is an emotion that often comes up with the aftermath of a disappointment. This could be a loss of relationship, a job, or just a general idea that what you thought your life would be. Sadness only becomes problematic when we do not allow ourselves to go through the natural phases of grief. Sadness does not release itself all at once. In fact, we often find it happens in waves, some of which strikes us at expected times. We do not ever need to feel embarrassed or wrong for needing to cry, feel down, or miss what we no longer have. In fact, crying at appropriate times is one of the biggest signs of mental strength, as people who are struggling often find it difficult to release the feeling and be vulnerable. An example I have of that is when a relationship I used to have with this beautiful girl once. When we separated ways, life has a tendency to do that. The first 2 weeks for me was anger, and I used the anger in the gym. Then grief and sadness hit me heavy afterwards. I had long showers. I sat on the floor, crying my eyes out, because I realized I did not have the person that I love anymore in my life. And then there's 5 stages of grief. I don't remember correctly what they are, but when I got to the last one of acceptance, I started to think that, okay, this person is not in my life anymore. The feeling still lingers around, but I need to accept it. So I'm moving on. Sadness, for example, is that if you get pushed too hard and you want to cry, cry. There have been moments I have cried in front of people because things have become too overwhelming for me. Even though if I cry in front of someone, as a man or as a woman, as a child, as a youth, as a young adult, as a old person, matter of fact, it does not matter. Crying is healthy for you. The one thing that has ruined it a lot for us is this social media influence that you need to be a man, you need to do this, 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 and this. And what I kind of feel like social media, I'm just going to side rant a little bit. I feel like social media has kind of pushed your feelings and everything you believe in aside. Social media is also a micro attack on your brain in general. For example, every single time I pull up my phone, okay, I'm going to look at my bank balance. And 50 seconds later, I suddenly might find myself on TikTok scrolling. But every single time we scroll, we rewire the dopamine factors in our brain and it resets. It is a unnatural form of dopamine and it kind of fucks you up. And before I go into more details about it, or I can't go into more details about it because I'm not a neuroscientist, but I would recommend watching Andrew Huberman on YouTube explaining dopamine receptors and how your brain works. And by reducing social media use in general, maybe cutting it completely out, how beneficial it is for you. Moving on. Guilt tends to affect us more than we didn't want it to. In fact, people who struggle the most with guilt are the people who are actually guilty of something terrible. People who commit heinous acts tend to not feel much remorse. The fact that you feel bad that you could not be wronged for someone is a good sign itself. However, guilt requires us to look deeply at the behavior, if any, and if we feel bad about it, as well as we may have done not as a best interest. If we have treated others unfairly, we must be able to admit, apologize, and correct that behavior. However, that feeling of guilt is more generalized and not specifically relating to any one's incident. We need to look closely at who or what made us feel that what we're wrong or inconveniencing others. Guilt is often an emotion we carry from childhood and then project onto current circumstances when we felt as though we were burdens to those around us. An example of guilt is I remember it was one time I let anger get the best of me at one time towards someone I love. Half an hour later, my brain kicked in with I feel like shit. I feel guilty of letting my emotional sides get the best of me. And it's kind of embarrassing too. That's actually funny because embarrassment is actually the next page. Embarrassment. Embarrassment is what we feel when we know that we did not behave in the way that we're proud of. Other people can never make us feel embarrassed as we make ourselves feel. When you are truly and completely confident that you are doing the best you can with what you have in front of you, you stop feeling embarrassed all the time. Sure, others can take you feel bad with their comments or ideas, but even their worst judgments tend to be neutralized when we accept ourselves and feel proud of who we are. Shame is the shadow side of embarrassment. This is when natural, occasional feeling of being embarrassed or turns into a way for us to completely condemn ourselves as human beings and being to see ourselves as worthless individuals. When we do not process this feeling of embarrassment, it tends to turn into something far darker. Before we now move on to jealousy and resentment, there's one thing I'd like to bring up. Bottling up your emotions is one of the biggest mistakes I've ever done in my life. I'm gonna just take a quick side note for you to get a better understanding. I grew up in a feminine household, and it changed my vision of how to be a man when I grew up. I was one of those kids that never fitted in. I was constantly running on emotions, and whenever I was told sit down and be quiet, I started to bottle up my emotions. And then slowly those emotions started to eat me up from the inside out. It wasn't before I turned 22 and a half that I realized that I couldn't fill this cup all the time with emotions. And when it tips over, I have a breakdown. I can't let that repeat over and over and over again. So I kind of found a different sort of solution. For me, I just let things slide. In the moment, it is very hard because your emotions are starting to flare up. Like, let's bring anger into the light. When you're at work, you're working in 9 to 5, and a customer is screaming at you, and you're explaining in the most basic human way that I cannot do this because unfortunately, this is the rules that I have to follow too. Some people are just purely stupid, and even if they are 40, many of these people just run on emotions. When they feel like, I spent $40 on this, it's maybe a deeper level towards it, but if I go into a store with an angry sort of like the customer, like an angry sort of intention, like, you owe me $40, this company sucks, and I just start the conversation with anger, I immediately lose this respect from the person working over the counter. However, if I change the situation and I got frustrated at, it cost me $40. Beforehand, before if I went into the store, if I was able to transfer that energy, that anger into something else, like, okay, I have this morals that I do not wish to harm someone else, as an example. So what do? I mean, shit, I will go at the punching bag. I will spend an extra few minutes at the gym and I will box. And when I use this anger in a sort of healthy way, then I will step back into the situation itself and think, hey, okay, now I'm stepping into the situation with a clear minded head. If you get what I'm saying. Jealousy. Jealousy is a cover up emotion. It presents as anger and judgment, when in reality it is sadness and self dissatisfaction. If you want to know what you truly want out of life, look at people who you are jealous of. No, you may not want exactly what they have, but the feeling that you are experiencing is anger that they are allowing themselves to pursue it while you're not. When we use our jealousy to judge other people, people's accomplishments, we are sliding into the shadows function. When we use our jealousy to show us what we would like to accomplish, we begin to recognize the self-sabotaging behavior and get ready to commit that we already actually desire. You can think of it this way. When we see someone who has something we really want, but we are suppressing our willingness to pursue it, we must also condemn them so we can justify our own course of action. Instead of this, we can see what we also like to create. A form of jealousy that I used to have, and it maybe still lingers around if I want to be honest, is there's a dude I know, same age as I am, much more successful. His name is Gorilla, and is this Jack. I'll actually show you a picture of him. I follow him on social media. All natural, following his dreams and desires when it comes to life in general. Even though right there pops up my For You page, this dude right here. There was a part, or it was a time in my life where I was actually jealous of him, and I let jealousy get the best of me by saying, yeah, he got lucky. When I started to dig a little deeper and started to stalk his profile a little bit and ask him a few questions in real life, I let go of my resentment and anger and frustration by thinking he got to this level because he chased his dreams. I am jealous because he achieved his dreams in general, and I haven't fulfilled and achieved my dreams. That creates jealousy. But if I were to turn the perspective and think more positive, thinking, hey, good for him that he has acquired his dreams. If I needed advice for training, I would ask him if I ever got the opportunity again for a specific sort of thing. But my goals and his goals is in the complete different aspects. Like he is focusing on, if I'm not mistaken, getting as huge and jacked as possible. My goal is mobility, flexibility, and speed in the gym. Complete opposites, to be fairly honest. I train for my goals and he trains for his. And I'm not gonna lie that if I gain more muscle mass, of course I'm gonna be really proud of it. But the point is that if I continue to let jealousy get the best of me, I would lose focus, and I would focus on him and putting him on a pedestal and thinking, yeah, I'm jealous of him. I guarantee you, this dude right here has many haters, many jealous people that just can't really accept that there's another human being that just aspired and acquired his dream. We just gotta accept the reality of it that you have your own problems and stop wasting time on being jealous of someone else. For example, just to put into better perspective, let's say I had still strong emotions towards my ex, and I saw her with another dude, and I let jealousy take the best of me, and just like, damn, she got something worse than me. Then I would let jealousy, basically coding as jealousy is a cover-up emotion. It presents as anger and judgment, that I would be judging her and holding resentment towards her that she found someone else. If I change the perspective again, just like I accepted reality for what it is and said, you know what? Good for her that she found someone else better than me. Maybe not better than me, but someone that is good for her. There's a reason that the relationship ended itself in the first place. Resentment. When we resent people, it is often because they did not live up to the expectations of them that we had in our minds. Resentment is one of ways as we like to project reject or regret. Instead of trying to show us what we could change, it seems to want to tell us what other people should change. However, other people are under no obligation to live up to our ideas of them. In fact, our only problem is that we have an unrealistic expectation that someone was meant to be exactly as we thought they should, or love us exactly as we imagined they would. When we are faced with resentment, what we instead must do is reinvent our image of those around us for those we have perceived us having wronged us. Other people are not here to love us perfectly. They are here to teach us lessons to show us how to love them and ourselves better. When we release when we release the ideas we have about who they should be, we can see them for who they are and the role they are meant to play in our lives. Instead of focusing on how they should change, we can focus instead of on what we can learn. That is actually very powerful, to be fairly honest with you. Resentment, that we should never, of course, having expectations, for example, your child to do a certain thing, perform a certain way to an extent, of course, is realistic. But to expect your partner, your ex, one of your friends to be exactly the way as you envisioned it, that you expect that you expect that this and this is going to exactly happen, and you expect your friend to follow up with this and this sort of set reps and weights at the gym. There was one time I trained with one of my close friends, and remember, he is at a different sort of strength level than I am. And to be fairly honest with you, that when we were doing legs, I expected him to do the same weight as I am. I'm at a different league when it comes to legs than he is. When it comes to chest, shoulder, triceps, biceps, core, or just in general when it comes to the upper body, his expectations for mine is unrealistic because I'm not the same level he is. But if I was to hold it against him that you should perform at my level, then the friendship would just crumble up from the inside out because I'm expecting him to perform at the level that I am. If it was vice versa, where he expects me to perform at his level, then something would be bad. Regret. Much like jealousy, regret is also another way we show ourselves not that we wish we could have done in the past, but we absolutely need to create going forward. The truth that most people regret that they did not do more when they ever regret what they did. This isn't a coincidence. Regret isn't actually trying to just make us feel bad that we didn't live up to our own expectations. It is trying to motivate us to live up to them going forward. It is trying to show us what absolutely imperative to change in the future and what we actually really care about experiencing before we die. Didn't travel when you were young? Regret is showing that you should have do it now. Didn't look as nice as you wanted to? Regret is showing you that you should try harder. Made choices that didn't reflect your best self? Regret is showing you that you should make different ones now. Didn't love someone while you had them? Regret is showing you that you should appreciate people now. Regret is one of those things that every single I'm putting down the book for a minute now because I'm going to be maybe speaking a little while about regret. There's a lot of things in my life that I actually regret. For example, that I want to travel more. I want to do more activities. There's a lot of things that I want to do. There are days that I can't regret. If that makes sense, that there are days where opportunity presents itself that I regret I didn't travel more or push myself harder in the gym. An opportunity presents itself on a day off that I've done everything that, oh cool, I can try to pursue it again and again and again. One thing that have popped up into my mind sometimes on social media, old people before they die on their deathbed, one of their things that they regret is not doing more. The difference between doing more and doing what you're supposed to is that there will be days where, okay, I need to clean my apartment in order to keep things tidy, in order to have a structure. And then there are days where you are presented with an opportunity that Opportunity presented itself that you can climb a tree. Grab that opportunity. Challenge fear. You are afraid of heights. Great opportunity right in front of you. You want to go skydiving. It's on your bucket list. Save up for it. You wanted to try a business idea. Be realistic. Do research. Follow through with it. One personal thing is that in my past relationship, for example, is that if there's one thing I regret is that I didn't communicate well. And that is something that I bear with me. But instead of regretting this and that, I am grateful that I learned from the relationship itself that it hurt, that I failed. I learned from it. And honestly, since I'm bringing sadness into the light like that and speaking about my ex and past feelings and stuff like that, it is, well, honestly, for me, it's a little tough because, well, when you love someone and it takes time to get over them. To be fairly honest with you, I'm partially over the individual, even though it's gone a long time. But grief, it takes time. For some people, it might take 3 months to get over their ex-girlfriend completely. For other people, it might take 6 months. For me, I don't know. To be fairly honest with you, that I instead of acting on regret and start to self-hate myself for what I did and the things that I've said and stuff that happened, I just accept it. And some days I sit with the feeling that, cool, I just realized my brain just happened to regret the entire situation, that I should said something differently. But instead of acting on it or doing anything different, I said, fuck it. I'm just going to sit here on the floor for 10 minutes, sit with the feeling, and then get back to work. If there's one thing I feel like any generation or any people in general, it saddens to see, is that your emotions are very powerful, and no matter what you're going through, you should be able to sit with your emotions in whatsoever way you can. Angry, find a healthy way to use it. As the book said earlier, is that anger is a beautiful, transformative emotion. It is mischaracterized by its shadows, aggression, and therefore we try to resist it. It is healthy to be angry, and anger can also show us important aspects of who we are and what we care about. For example, anger shows us where our boundaries are. You feel like your boundaries are being overstepped. Do not necessarily put the people in place, but tell them in a fashionable manner that someone overstepped the line. To be fairly honest, I kind of missed the point. I had something important I was going to say, but I forgot it. Anyway, moving on. Chronic fear. When we cannot stop returning to fearful thoughts, it is not always because there are actually threat in front of us. Often it is because our internal response system are underdeveloped, are sidelined by trauma. When we are in a state of fearful thinking, it does not matter what we are afraid of. The thought process follows from problem to problem. Often there is a metaphor encoded with it. For example, we may be afraid of an ultimate loss of control or some external force coming in unraveling our progress. Regardless, chronic fearful thinking often comes back down to the feeling that we need to focus our energy and attention on potential threat so we can protect ourselves from it. We imagine that we are worried, anxious, or angry about it. It will remain within our awareness and therefore cannot surprise us. We can retain some control over it. The very act of holding these fearful thoughts within our minds is exactly how the fear is controlling us in the first place. It is derailing our lives right now because we are channeling our energy into something that is outside of our control, as opposed to using it for everything that is actually within our control, the habits, actions, and behaviors that actually move our lives forward. In this sense, what we are afraid of is really a projection of what already happening. The only true way to get over chronic fear is actually to get through it. Instead of trying to battle, resist, and avoid what we cannot control, we can learn to simply shrug and say, if that happened, if it happens, it happens. The second we are able to shrug, laugh, or even just throw our hands up and say, whatever, it'll be fine, we instantly take back all our power. What keeps the fire and fear raging is the idea that we accept what we are afraid of. We're giving into the worst potential outcome. The truth is that we have to stop being afraid of what we cannot control and know instead that nothing can possibly ruin our lives more than we are ruining them with our negative, distracted, and irrational thinking of focus. We're completely freed. When we are full acceptance, fear leaves our consciousness and becomes a non issue. It is the point we realize that it always was. And that is one of the last things I'm going to end the video with. I'm not going to sit here and try to hype you up, motivate you, or push you in the right direction. But it is what it is. It happens if it happens. Is letting a situation where you're not in control of just let it flow. And an example of that is a personal experience is that every single day I plan how I envision my day supposed to go. That I wake up, I do my morning routine, I sit down and make a YouTube video, I post it, and then I continue, go to the gym, meal prep, and then follow through. Then I head to the gym. Okay. It's crowdy on a Saturday evening. A late exercise because I had to rearrange my plan. If I started to see control in the situation that I need to get this set in, that set in, bam, 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 and started to become a control freak, then I would lose control. If I continuously to seek control in every single situation, I would lose. For example, conversation with a good friend of yours. You're trying and you're manipulating, or in general you're trying to redirect the focus in a certain direction by hinting to it. Trying to seek control of the situation itself without taking control. If you believe that there is a conversation with a friend of yours, family member, or in something, if you have the opportunity, take control of the situation and say, I want to speak about this now. There are two options. If the person says it is a bad time right now because I'm too tired, I was just working a 12-hour shift at work, then we need to swallow our pride and say, all right, I'll take a rain check then, another time. If I were to try to force the situation by forcing control and saying, no, I want to have a conversation right here, right now, I would sound like a desperate girlfriend, desperate ex. And accept one of the parts in the books that said, accepting things for what it is. It is true, but there also will come a point in your life where you just can't accept things for what it is. There was a friendship I used to have long ago. The best example I have of that is I was accepting this person draining my energy. Then I took control of the situation. I let anger control me in a sort of way, but I was still in check of it. I was still holding control over anger, but I let anger get the best of me because I had enough of this person constantly fucking draining my physical and mental energy. Maybe not physical, mentally. Every single time I hung out with this person, I fucking lost energy. Never gained anything. And then there was a point in time where we were about to hang out and I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. So I kind of gave them a reality check where, you know, you're a great person and all, but we're not aligned to be friends. I worded it a little differently at the time, but we're not compatible anymore. Every single time I hang out with you, I just fucking get exhausted. Every single time I see your face, I get exhausted. I'm tired of this. Every single time we hang out, it's the same shit every single fucking time. Nothing changes. And our friendship, to be fairly honest, doesn't go any further to the next level. I got my ambitions and you have your ambitions. If it was up to me, I wish we could go together with our ambitions, or in general something else. That I love the gym. I love exercising. I love moving my body. I love making YouTube videos. You like playing video games and stuff like that, but we kind of grew apart at a certain point because I can't do this. Every single time I hang out with you, it's just the same fucking shit all over the time. How is school? How is this? How is that? And I complain about something, and then you speak about something, and I don't give a shit. It was the part when I said, I don't give a shit. And when the person responded with, okay, we left. I never spoke since. But that is just actually having had enough of a certain human being. And the same goes for your life situation. Will come a point in your life where you're sitting there, maybe at 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning. It will come a point in time where you're just like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being the same person. I'm tired of complaining. I'm tired of doing the same shit over and over and over again and nothing changes. Then that's your realization of thinking, you know what, something has to change. You must plan, you must do something differently. And the same goes for me, that there are things in life that I procrastinated with up until this point. And to be fairly honest, I should just take my own advice, just fucking get it over with. Instead of complaining. We all have our struggles, and of course it's much easier said than done. But when you get to the point, the best example I have of it was when I was playing video games and video games just didn't hit the same anymore. I lost interest in the concept of video games itself. It was actually during the pandemic. I used to love playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Horizon Zero Dawn. But it came to a point where I'd done the main missions, I'd done the side missions. I was just fucking around, killing robots, killing NPCs and shit like that. And I was just trying to run away from school, work, priorities, health. But it was to a point where I put down the control and I was looking at myself like, I want to aspire to be like Alexios, the main character in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like really jack and a good physique. How do I aspire for it? How do I achieve that godly physique? Well, I need to do something. I can't sit around, do nothing. That's pretty much it. It is you versus you. Fuck everyone else, but seek guidance when it needed. Take care.